I think what we see on stage with Joe Biden, Jake, is very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable.
You are no. I can't. It's so amazing. It's so amazing to me that
try and figure out an answer.
A cognitive decline.
When you're trying to tell me that what I was suggesting was
I think that you were mocking his stutter. Yeah, I think you were mocking his stutter, and I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline. I would think that somebody in the Trump family would be more sensitive to people who do not have medical licenses diagnosing politicians from afar. In our 2020 lead today, President Trump's niece, who is a clinical psychologist, is calling on the American Psychiatric Association to drop the so-called Goldwater rule, which bars mental health professionals from diagnosing public figures that they have not examined in person. Mary Trump says that psychiatrists, quote, know what's wrong with my uncle. And she says it's time they tell voters. And Mary Trump joins us now. She's also the author of Too Much and Never Enough: How My Family Created the World's Most Dangerous Man.
A few years later.
Tuesday, it's called Original Sin: President Biden's Decline, Its Cover-Up, and His Disastrous Choice to Run Again. The book is drawn from more than 200 interviews with mostly Democratic insiders, almost all of them after the election. And one of the things we were shocked to learn, the White House physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, talked about how if Biden had one more fall, he might actually need to be in a wheelchair. But this was all put off until after the election. They did not want images of Biden in a wheelchair out there. You might recall that Biden started to have problems with a shuffling gait that the administration was very sensitive about. There was a time when they started having people walk with him to Marine One. Those people were there to kind of like hide the fact that his gait was as bad as it was, and also have them there in case he stumbled. The White House would say that this gait issue was because Biden had fallen after the election of 2020, but the truth is that it didn't have to do with that. Dr. O'Connor's medical report said that that injury was completely healed. This had to do with other degenerative problems.
Boy, 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 boy. So once again, we got to talk about the mainstream liberal media being wrong about something that the average American could see clearly with our own two eyes, which is that Joe Biden was physically and mentally declining while he was in office. Okay, it doesn't take a rocket scientist, it doesn't take a so-called journalist or insider to see it. It just takes somebody that is not Trump deranged, right? Somebody that's not pushing propaganda on behalf of the Democrat Party to see what was happening to Joe Biden. And like I told you guys, like we've been talking about, the mainstream liberal media is kicking a dead horse while he's down, right? They're kicking Joe Biden and they're throwing him under the bus because they lost credibility due to the fact that they chose to lie on behalf of the Democrat Party and to cover up Biden's mental decline. And now they're coming out and they're basically throwing Biden under the bus and the Democrats under the bus, blaming them, blaming the Democrats and Joe Biden for why is it that they were wrong about Joe Biden's mental decline. But the reality is that while they seem to be wrong on the surface, no, they actually were lying, right? They were a part of the cover-up, okay? And that's why I think it's extremely disgusting what we're currently seeing from these propagandists in the mainstream liberal media. As you have these so-called journalists giving themselves awards, right? They're giving themselves awards for acknowledging what they told everybody was not a real thing, right? Especially leading up to the election. In the middle of last year, they kept telling us before the CNN debate in which Biden revealed to the world that he is in fact mentally declining. They said, no, cheap fakes, right? All those videos of Biden getting lost, okay? Biden falling down everywhere, talking about meeting with dead people. Oh, no, you don't understand. Those are cheap fakes, okay? That is a right-wing conspiracy theory. Don't believe it, okay? And now all of a sudden, these people want to give themselves awards, and they want to write books, right? They want to make money off of the fact that they helped cover up Biden's mental decline by pretending that, well, we didn't really know, right? It was the Democrats. The Democrats lied to us, okay? They misled us. We were hoodwinked, run amok, led astray, right? This is what they're now claiming, okay? And in this video, I want to talk very specifically about Jake Tapper, who I believe is probably one of the most disgusting grifters in the mainstream liberal media, because this guy, throughout all of Biden's presidency, for the most part, again, this idea that Biden was experiencing a cognitive decline, he wasn't having any of it. Take a look.
How do you think it makes little kids with stutters feel when they see you make a comment like that?
It's very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable.
You have no I can't. That's so amazing. It's so amazing to me that
try and figure out an answer.
A cognitive decline. President Biden embraces his stutter, talking about it, while Trump mocks it, exaggerates it, belittles it. He's sharp physically. I mean, mentally.
Yeah.
I think the question is physically, right?
Right.
More so?
Right.
Right. And the guy who's his chief opponent is only 3 or 4 years younger than him.
Exactly.
I mean, you have questioned President Biden's age, mental fitness, ability to lead. Of those supporting Biden, you said, quote, shame on all of you pretending everything is okay. You're leading us and him into a disaster. Do you worry that you damaged him at all? I don't doubt that you got hugs and handshakes behind closed doors today, and maybe even publicly, some of them because they like you personally. But I've heard a lot of really nasty stuff about you from your Democratic colleagues. Sure. I mean, just like, what is he thinking? Exercise in narcissism. I mean, false claims to the Wall Street Journal about President Biden's mental fitness and acuity. He's 81, and his memory, it doesn't seem great. It's not horrible, but I don't understand the outrage. Quote, behind closed doors, Biden shows signs of slipping, unquote. The Wall Street Journal is owned by News Corp, which is run by the Murdochs. Beyond the headline, there is some critical nuance here. The article is mostly based on observations of Republicans, with former Speaker Kevin McCarthy the only one going on the record. They do note in the article that most of the criticism comes from Republicans. Have you heard any concerns from anyone who has met with President Biden about him seeming a little slower?
No.
The Russians are trying to make us and the public not trust our election integrity. Joe Biden has dementia, all this stuff.
Wow. 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 Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable, guys. Unbelievable. So let's listen to this guy tell us about how now all of a sudden he's an expert on what happened with Joe Biden's deterioration while he was in office. Again, this is absolutely unbelievable. This guy should be ashamed of himself. He really should be. But let's play this video.
President Biden's closest advisors privately discussed the possibility that he may need to use a wheelchair if he won re-election because his physical health had deteriorated so much. That scoop out this morning from Axios. It's one of the many details in the soon-to-be-released new book titled Original Sin, President Biden's Decline, its cover-up, and his disastrous choice to run again. It was written by Axios' Alex Thompson and CNN's own Jake Tapper. Jake is here to join us now. I'm curious about what his advisors were saying at the time as you look at this, as you reported out this book.
So the White House physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, was telling White House aides that President Biden's deterioration of his spine, the degeneration, was so significant that if he fell one more time, that he might have to be in a wheelchair and serve in a wheelchair for his second term. But everybody pushed off the notion that he used a wheelchair until after the election. This is all part of a larger whole where the Biden White House tried to hide the extent of his deterioration, both physical and cognitive, as much as possible. In fact, as we all saw, as his shuffling gait got worse and worse from 2003 to 2004, they started putting aides around him as he walked to Marine One, the helicopter. That was to kind of hide from public view how bad his gait was, how bad his walking was, his shuffling, and also in case he stumbled again to make sure somebody was there. And this is just of a piece of an overall campaign to try to conceal from the American people the extent to which the president was really struggling to do his job.
You have an entire White House press corps, though, following him around. And I'm just curious as to whether or not this kind of trying to hide what was happening with the president at the time had an impact on the press corps. Like, why didn't we hear some of these details from what they actually saw and were dealing with trying to get information?
Well, Alex Thompson and I were on the case, as were lots of other reporters, trying to figure out what was going on behind the scenes. But the bottom line is the White House was lying, not only to the press, not only to the public, but they were lying to members of their own cabinet. They were lying to White House staffers. They were lying to Democratic members of Congress, to donors about how bad things had gotten. And in fact, Alex and I started writing this book after the election of 2024, and we spoke with more than 200 people, almost all of whom were Democrats, and almost all of whom wouldn't be honest with us or wouldn't be candid with us until after the election. And then after the election, we found out all of these things that when you looked at what was going on with President Biden at the time, it probably doesn't surprise you the extent to which he was deteriorating. But now we have anecdotes and facts about what was really going on behind the scenes with details that Democrats wouldn't share with us until after Election Day.
Are you hearing anything from President Biden himself about any of this? Is he responding to any of this?
So he was on The View last week. And Alyssa Farah-Griffin, one of our commentators and also obviously a host there, asked him about our book. Specifically, she said to us later it was about our book, about the fact that sources were saying these things about him behind closed doors, and are they wrong? And the president said they were wrong, but he doesn't obviously know what's in the book as of now. His spokesman, who wouldn't go on the record, told Axios in the excerpt that Alex and Axios published this morning that nobody can point to any result of this alleged deterioration that meant a decision was bad or any impact on the country, to which I just say, stay tuned. We got a lot more coming out, including on The Lead today at 5 p.m. Eastern. We'll have more from Original Sin.
Wow. All of these people should be fired. Every single last one of them should be fired. Every single last one of them. I'm so serious about this. Like, what is the point of so-called journalism when you're clearly not doing your job? They're blaming Democrats lied to us, right? Now, I want you guys to understand. Jake Tapper, as you guys saw in the video I played before that video, he denied every single report that came out that did not fit the narrative that the mainstream liberal media wanted to put out at the time about Joe Biden. He denied it, okay? He brushed it off about the reports, even the DOJ report, in which you had Robert Hur, who interviewed Joe Biden, basically saying, look, this guy's too cognitively impaired to stand trial. It would be elder abuse, right? They dismissed it. Well, we didn't know. Democrats just lied to us, right? As if you should only take the Democrats in their word for it. Now, when the Trump administration says something and the mainstream liberal media doesn't believe it, do they come out here and say, well, they told us that this is what happened, so I guess this is what happened, right? They told us that this is the truth, so I guess this is the truth. They never do that with the Trump administration. But they did that with the Democrats and Biden. But yeah, you have this dude who on his own network denied all these things, is now writing a book and trying to make millions of dollars off of something that he lied to the American people about on his own network. And he's pushing his book on his own network. This is disgusting. This is corruption. This is unethical. And listen, I'm not a fan of Joe Biden, but honestly, like low key, because he's so damn old, I'm starting to feel just a tiny bit bad for Joe Biden and what they're doing to him, because they legitimately F this dude and they threw him away like a used condom, even though I think he kind of deserves it, to be honest with you, right? So I really don't feel bad at all. I'm just saying that at this point, I feel like they're just beating a dead horse to save their own credibility, when they just should have been honest from the get-go. But they couldn't be honest about it, because being honest would have helped Trump. Chuck Todd admitted it. They all admitted it. That, yeah, there was a sense amongst the propagandists that, yeah, we tell the truth about Joe Biden, if we actually, explore this smoke to see if there's fire there, then, hey, it might help Trump win, right? It turns out that backfired because, ultimately at the end of the day, them not telling the truth about Joe Biden, I think contributed to the fact that Democrats did as badly as they did in the election. I think Trump would have won regardless of who they put up. But I'm just saying, had they told the truth about this in 2023, Biden probably would have dropped out before the Democrat primary. So now all of a sudden, after these people lied to us time and time again, they have Jake Tapper coming out saying, well, Joe Biden was one fall away from being in a wheelchair because he has a degenerating condition in his spine, right? Now, again, why didn't we know about this before? If they would have actually done journalism, investigative journalism, like the media should be doing, we would have known about this. But now that it doesn't matter anymore, now all of a sudden they want to come out and tell the truth. And then they want to point the finger at the Democrats and, well, it's their fault. They lied to us. No, you covered it up. You allowed yourself to be lied to, and you wanted to believe the lies, right? Because the truth was uncomfortable. The truth might help Trump. And that's why I say this is disgusting. So I want to play this clip of one of the operatives that work for the Biden administration being confronted about this. And once again, you're getting the same runaround from these people who are around Joe Biden, basically claiming, well, I was only around him for a certain amount of time. When he really started to cognitively decline, I wasn't there. And I didn't talk to anybody that was there. I don't know anything about it, so don't look at me, right? I ain't have anything to do with it.
Sam made clear that he had a stiffened gait caused in part by wear and tear to his spine, but that no special treatment was necessary and that it had not worsened. Adding that, yes, there were physical changes as he got older, but evidence of aging is not evidence of mental incapacity. We're joined now by CNN chief media analyst Brian Stelter and CNN political commentator Jamal Simmons. Jamal is also a former deputy assistant to President Biden. He served as communications director for Vice President Harris. Jamal, how are you reacting to these revelations that we're learning about in this book, specifically this wheelchair, I guess, speculation that he might need one? And what did you hear while you were there?
I got to tell you, it's extraordinarily surprising that they would be that concerned. You know, I was there until the end of 2022. I think I left January of 2023. So a lot of the reporting picks up after that point that there were some real concerns after 2023. The president that I saw when I was there was someone who was absolutely slower. He was absolutely somebody who, you know, walked with kind of that stiffened gait, I think is the word they used. But he seemed to be pretty on top of it mentally. He was able to engage. He told jokes. He was answering questions from constituents. He was making, really light of a lot of situations and seemed like he was pretty engaged. So what I would say is that I understand why in the winter of 2022, the president and his aides thought that he could be president of the United States again. The question becomes, what happened in the winter of 2023 and going into 24 that they really saw these concerns with the president and they still decided to stick with the plan? I think that's the place where Biden aides who are still in the White House probably have to, answer those questions about they made that choice. But every decision is made about what you think is best for the country. But sometimes what's best for the country may not be best for your boss.
Wow. So every time you ask one of these Democrat operatives that work with Joe Biden personally, same thing with Jim Psaki, they say, well, I wasn't there. I didn't know. As if this guy wasn't experiencing signs of decline before he got elected, right? Before Joe Biden became president, everybody saw what was happening, right? You had people talking about what was going on with Joe Biden. But I was only there for the first couple of years. I didn't know, right? And then this idea that these people who, again, this guy was working for Kamala Harris. You had nobody in the White House that you talk to or that you speak with on a regular basis that say anything about it, that weren't concerned at all? Come on now. Come on. These people really think that we're dumb. They think that we're stupid. But like I said, this is shameful stuff, man. I really am not all that comfortable with what I'm seeing happening for the mainstream liberal media, right? Like, it is very uncomfortable to think about the fact that these people lied on purpose. They covered it up, and now they're trying to make money off their lies and cover up in order to save their own credibility. When they told everybody who was rightfully pointing out the fact that Joe Biden was physically and mentally declining, they said that, well, you're right-wing conspiracy theorists. They dismissed all the reports as, well, that's, again, that's just right-wing propaganda, right? That's just Fox News talking points. And now all of a sudden these people are coming out and acknowledging the truth because, again, they want to make money and they want to save their own credibility. But the reality is that, to me, this just confirms that the Democrat Party and mainstream liberal media, these people are snakes, right? They're backstabbers. There's no loyalty in this game, right? I mean, they're loyal when it comes to being against Trump, but now when it comes to Joe Biden and the fact that, again, he is cognitively and physically declining, now it doesn't have anything to do with Trump, okay? Now all of a sudden they want to tell the truth. But when it actually mattered, they said nothing. In fact, again, they essentially denied any reports or any claims about Joe Biden. So now what we need to know from the mainstream liberal media, right, since they want to have some truth serum when it comes to the Biden administration, who was running the country? Because clearly Joe Biden wasn't running the country. Who was running the country for the last 4 years under Biden? That's what we need to know, right? That's what I'm waiting on. So I hope nobody buys this book. To be honest with you, nobody should buy this book. Let Jake Tapper and all these grifters go on there and give us all the juicy details, and nobody should read this book, right? Nobody should read these books. Don't buy these books, okay? These people do not deserve a dime for the piss poor journalism that they did. And now all of a sudden, they're trying to quote unquote make it right because they can make a buck. Again, it's shameful, it's disgusting, and every single last one of these people should be fired. Should be fired. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.